Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our adventure channel. Just wanted to kind of change the mood a little bit. That was a clip from one of our Hawaii trips, which I will get around to editing. But nevertheless, I want to thank everybody for able to join in on this late at night. I see we got 3 likes so far. We typically don't get a lot of live streaming, but for the most part, we're back. At least I'm back. Wanted to give everybody some updated information as we kind of finally close out this debacle. And we're going to go through all the crap tonight, even if it takes us 2 hours to go along or go through with it. We're going to expose all the crap, all the stuff that's been put out there by Lupe Rose and the cohorts, or whoever claims to represent her, which will be dealt with in short time frame. So just a kind of a small recap. We're talking about the 3 ladies over here on the left, Lupe Rose on the far left. We got Kat Durden there in the middle, and then we have Sonia Shelby. And as I said, the last video, which was what was it, last night, the other night, or whatever the case might have been, they pled guilty already, and I think they're waiting sentencing, and then Lupe Rose is also waiting for her day in court. We already know how that's going to go, and that's why she's been begging for money. But we're going to lay out all the facts, and we're going to go back 20 plus years, almost 30 years, with all this information, because you guys need to see it. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything that I've already kind of talked about, because some of those videos have already been like 2 hours long, and I've pretty much kind of forgot the situation, kind of left it alone. But again, mainstream media is dead. If you guys aren't aware of this, the Antelope Valley newspaper, the Antelope Valley Times, whatever it's called, they have a very much skeleton crew. They only have one editor there, one writer, and then they have a bunch of a skeleton crew. They closed up the Lancaster shop, and so it's pretty much up to individuals who are in circumstances to kind of report the news. So that's why you guys haven't seen much about She Beverage in any of the newspapers or pretty much on TV. Mainstream media is dead, so you get more information on social media, X or Twitter, various platforms like that. Facebook is kind of censored, so we pretty much don't look at situations like that. So in today's video, we're going to go through all the information, not all of it, but we're going to go through all the latest information, everything that I have not told you guys about, going back towards. I want to make sure I have my dates here, because I've spoken to Yvette Espinoza. If you guys aren't familiar with who Yvette Espinoza is, she is the lady that had a successful lawsuit against She Beverage about 4 or 5 years ago now. She got all of her money back. Also got some additional court documents we are going to share here on the channel. And for the most part, we're going to start kind of winding down this situation. There's probably a few more videos that we got left. But again, we want to make sure that all of you have the latest information and everything that can be presented for you today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start getting this ball rolling. First and foremost, we got Lupe Rose here, who was a, well, before I get into Lupe Rose, the 2 ladies, Kat Durden and Sonia Shelby, have filed plea agreements, and that's kind of going up. Not Sonia Shelby, but Lupe Rose, if you guys didn't know, she was a previous convicted felon. We have that right here on, let's see, where is it? There you go. This is a court document from 1997. And in 1997, Lupe Rose was arrested with somebody named Tamika Rose for fraud, for identity theft, credit card, and check fraud. We're going to read all the latest information in regards to this, and Yvette Espinosa was kind enough to send this over to me, and we had a nice conversation in regards to everything. But did you guys know they tried to bully her in court? And she won, I think, because she was one of the original investors in She Beverage. She commented on one of my videos, and I responded to her. And then this was many months ago. Then we were kind of corresponding, going back and forth, and she kind of laid out everything. And so she kind of followed along. And I remembered her name because her name came up in one of these lawsuits. If you guys don't know who Yvette Espinoza is, she is one of the original first investors of She Beverage, and she filed a lawsuit. I believe it was her and another gentleman back in March of 2017. Now, the with She Beverage, all of you investors, you were supposed to know this. This information was supposed to be disclosed. This information was supposed to be shared. You're supposed to know this as an investor because if I had known this, if other people have known this, maybe you wouldn't have invested in She Beverage or whatever the case might have been. And it just really behooves me as that this information didn't come out at all. And so, long story short, Yvette had invested over $100,000 or so in She Beverage, and come to find out that She Beverage wasn't exactly doing what they were supposed to do. She found out that her money was being swindled and spent in Las Vegas, and somebody alerted her to the situation. Somebody close to Lupe Rose. Based on, again, this is all allegedly and based upon my understanding, what was communicated to me. And she asked for her money back. And when she asked for her money back, things didn't go too well. And I think she was in Vegas. Lupe Rose was in Vegas, spending all of her newly invested money, and was telling people, "Oh, well, thank you, Bet Espinosa, for all that." And a long story short, here we are. That she had to file a court case or file a lawsuit against all of these individuals, Sonia Shelby, Kat Durden, and Lupe Rose, to get her money back. And so the date was March 14th, 2017, when it was filed, and it was settled in 2019. And so Yvette Espinosa went after all of them. She did her homework. And after she won her court case, which is another situation unto itself, apparently, based upon my understanding, allegedly she was harassed at the courthouse. They showed up with attorneys, and the attorney tried to act like it was a regular court situation, knowing that it was a small civil case. Well, I wouldn't say small, but it was a civil suit. The attorney tried to object, do a bunch of other attorney things, and pretty much the judge had enough of them, had to shut him up, and awarded her punitive damages, and then also won her $100,000, which she had to pay in interest. Now, Yvette Espinosa did her homework. She tracked down not only Kat, her husband, because he was also involved in this lawsuit as well. She even contacted his employer. At the time, I believe he was working corrections or something to do with the law enforcement agency. But Yvette Espinosa was pissed. She was going after all of them, put liens on their property. She was going to, well, she was going to do that. I'm not sure if that had to transpire. And she also was going to garnish his wages, Kat Durden's husband's wages. And so they quickly paid up. And so this was around maybe 2019 or so is when she got her judgment. Really nice lady. Really nice lady. She told me I could share all of this information with you. This was probably this was several months ago. So, yeah, she got all this information. And then, of course, she sent me all the information regarding Lupe Rose, that she was already a convicted felon in the past, going back to 1997. But yeah, Yvette, there's a bunch of information she shared with me. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. She did notice that they were taking basic water, filling up the water bottles or whatever the case might be, telling people it was pure water or going to cure cancer and all that other mess. She was a witness to all of that. So that was all reported here as well. But she had to get escorted to her parking lot, leaving the court case. But apparently they were trying to intimidate her and do all this other stuff even before going into court. And so a lot of that information, based upon what I've heard from a number of you out there, has pretty much been consistent as to what some of them are doing today. So fast forward, this is the information that was sent over to me, and it says here, on or about September 7th, 1997, on the County of Los Angeles, the crime of making false financial statements in violation with Penal Code Section 532. As you can see here, we got Lupe Rose mentioned here at the top, aka Sylvia Williams. I guess that's another alias she goes by, as well as somebody named Tamika Maxwell, aka Tamika Rose. Not sure who that is. Committed by a felony was committed by Lupe Rose. Again, this is 1997, who did unlawfully and knowingly make and cause to be made a false statement in writing with intent that it should be relied upon, respecting the financial condition and means and ability to pay of himself and another person, firm, or corporation in which he or she was interested and for whom she was acting for the purpose. So she was working with someone, I think a caregiver, doing something of that nature. We're going to kind of read through this and kind of skim through it at the same time. Again, trying to keep this as short as possible. But she took their information, credit card, and checks and started committing fraud with it, as obviously her methods really haven't changed over the years. For the purpose of procuring the delivery of personal property, the payment of cash, making of a loan and credit, the extension of credit, the discount of an account receivable, and making, accepting discount, sale, endorsement of a bill of exchange and a promissory note for the benefit of himself and of such person, firm, and corporation. Let me see if I can blow this up here. It's a little small. There we go. There we go. Maybe you guys can see it now. Lupe Rose used a fictitious name, social security number, business name, and business address and falsely represented himself or herself to be another person or another business, which is what she still does today. On or about September 7, 1997, in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of a forgery and document in violation of Penal Code Section 470A, a felony was committed by Lupe Rose, who did unlawfully with intent to defraud, falsely make, alter, forge, and counterfeit a credit application under Sylvia Williams, and did thereon counterfeit and forge the seal and handwriting of another, to wit, Sylvia Williams, and did utter, publish, pass, and attempt to pass the same as true and genuine, knowing the same to be false, altered, forged, and counterfeited with the intent to prejudice, damage, and defraud Sylvia Williams Staples. On and between August 20th, 1997 and August 21st, 1997 in the county of Los Angeles, the crime of making false financial statement in violation of Penal Code Section 532A1, a felony was committed by Lupe Rose. This again, 1997, before Beverage, who did unlawfully and knowingly make and cause to be made a false statement in writing with intent that it should be relied upon respecting the financial conditions and means and ability to pay of himself and another person, firm, or corporation in which he or she was interested in, for whom he or she was acting for the purpose of procuring the delivery of personal property, the payment of cash, the making of a loan and credit, the extension of credit, the discount of an account receivable, and making acceptance, discount, and sale and endorsement of a bill of exchange, a promissory note for the benefit of himself and such persons, firm, or corporation that the defendant, Lupe Rose, used a fictitious name, social security number, business name, and business address, and falsely represented himself or herself to be another person and another business. September 2nd, 1997, County of LA, the crime of acquisition of access card account information in violation of Penal Code Section 484EE, felony was committed by Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell, who did unlawfully acquire access card account information with respect to access card validity issued to another person without the cardholder's issues consent with the intent to use it fraudulently. On or about September 2nd, 97, County of LA, the crime of fraudulent use of access card in violation of Penal Code Section 484G, a felony was committed by Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell, who did unlawfully with intent to defraud, use an access card which he or she knew was forged, expired, and revoked for the purpose of obtaining money or goods, services, and anything else of value. Busybody. It is further alleged that the value of all money, goods, services, and other things of value obtained during the 6-month consecutive period ending September 2nd, 1997 exceeded $400. So they didn't even go over $1,000, or well, maybe $2,000. It's definitely under grand theft at that time. On or about August 20th, 97, you know what? I don't know if you guys noticed this, but this is kind of ironic. So she was caught September 2nd, 1997, and the SEC filed a lawsuit against them in September of 2021. Kind of ironic, it was the same month. On or about August 20th, 1997, in the county of LA, the crime of forgery of a document in violation of Penal Code Section 470A felony was committed by Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell, who did unlawfully with intent to defraud, falsely make, alter, forge, and counterfeit a credit card application under the name of Sylvia Williams, and thereon counterfeit and forge the line of steel and handwriting to wit Sylvia Williams, and did other published pass and attempt to pass the same as true than genuine, knowing the same to be false, altered, forged, and counterfeit with intent to prejudice, damage, and defraud Sylvia Williams, L.A. Cellular. Mm. On or about September 7th, 97, County of LA, the crime of grand theft of labor in violation of Penal Code 487A felony was committed by Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell, who did unlawfully obtain the labor of services American Express Allstate bail bonds of a value exceeding $400. You know, I wish I had AI turned on so this thing kind of read it to myself or whatever the case might be. All right, further attached hereto and incorporated herein are official reports and documents of a law enforcement agency which the undersigned believes established probable cause for the arrest of Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell for the above listed crimes, wherefore a warrant of arrest is requested for Lupe Rose and Tamika Maxwell. So there's all this information. This was generated out of Culver City. If you're familiar with that, that is in LA City, right next to LA, right near Beverly Hills, not too far from Santa Monica, if you know where Culver City is. So it's in that particular jurisdiction. And the bail was set forth at $30,000, which will be $3,000 at that particular time. So she has a track record. I'm sure many of you fellow investors would not have invested if you had known better. It makes me wonder if people didn't know and didn't say anything. That's a topic for another day, but I would think that somebody or somebodies would have said something at some point in time. But this is the information. And again, a lot of this information was all brought forth too when they were sued. When She Beverage was first sued, one of the first lawsuits back in March 17th when all this was brought up. I think the actual court date was in uh, 2019. And so that's the information that you have there, provided by Lupe Rose. I'm sorry, provided by Yvette Espinoza. But yeah, I wonder what happened with this case, but she got all of her money, contractual fraud, and the judge was so pissed off at all of them, all the ladies, not Yvette, but Lupe Rose, Kat Durden, Sonia Shelby, and the attorney. The judge said, screw this, gave her what she wanted, gave her punitive damages, and I think he probably gave him something else or did something else, whatever the case might be. But his buttons were pushed, and he didn't like what he had to hear because they were trying to dominate the courtroom, and so that's kind of what happened in that situation with that. So moving on to the next topic, one of the things that we definitely want to address here is that there is an individual that goes by this name or moniker named Monica. And so this individual put out several videos, and also Lupe Rose, or this Monica Chalmers person that I've even heard from, is claiming to be a legal representative of Lupe Rose, claiming that they're innocent, justice for them, and all that other fancy jazz. And so we're going to go through several of the videos, and notice there's no voice. Kind of skipping ahead a little bit. The ladies have so far pled guilty. Not Lupe Rose, but Kat Durden and Sonia Shelby. They can't communicate with any investors, and that's probably why there's no voice here. Personally, I believe that this is another moniker for Lupe Rose, because you got Monica and then also somebody named Monica Chalmers. I'm sorry. I believe this is the same individual, same alias. No information, no facts. Man, even in part of this, I'm not going to play all of this, but this person was claiming that we work for the government. Apparently, in order to put out information online, you must be a representative for the government just to put out newsworthy information. This would be the equivalent of really being happy the Los Angeles Lakers won the championship. Obviously, I must play for the team if I get excited and I see a ball go through a hoop. However, that is not the case. So we're going to point out just several of the lies here that have been pointed out. And if I can't find it here, we're just going to kind of scrub through some of this junk, because it just amazes me that. But before I do that, just to kind of recap, this video is trying to, or these 4 videos is trying to portray a sense of innocence. We didn't do any of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you guys are still working with us, etc., etc. Now, notice the date on this video. It says February 9th, 2024. That is the date of this video. So I want to pull up here some information. And we are going to pull up, because I want you guys to see this. We're going to pull it up side by side. All right, so this is the plea agreement that Sonia, let's see, that Sonia Shelby already pled to. Now, mind you, again, the date on this video is February 9th, 2024. Hey, y'all, we're innocent. Believe us. People are lying on us. The government's coming after us, and blah, blah, blah. All right, well, this plea agreement was signed confessing her guilt in this by Sonia Shelby 3 months before this video. 2 months, I'm sorry. 2 months almost to the date of this video. Over here, we have a video claiming our innocence. You know, obviously this is supposed to be somebody representing Lupe. February 9th, begging for money, support our legal funds, $100,000, that's the goal. But over here, they already pled guilty of December 14th, 2023. 2023, December 14th, 2 months before these freaking videos came out, already trying to sell you on a pity party and scam you out of some more money when they're already saying, hey, I'm already entering into an agreement that we're guilty. At least one of them did. At least one of them at that point in time. So they could go do something with that. So just wanted to show all that information. So we're going to quickly scroll through this video because I want to show you guys, this was a clip that was in here that says that we somehow work for the government, etc., etc., and that we're the voice for the government. If I can't find it here, then they claim it is racism. And then it also says that the SEC was the ones that shut them down. So I want to make sure it says, okay, there we go. It says TJ and Angelica Ventures became the voice for the government spreading fake news, have been obsessed with Lupe and She Beverage Company. We learned they are working with the government to further defame and spread lies about Lupe Rose to her shareholders, and we will hold them accountable. So let's go back over here. Because first of all, in this video, it says that the SEC shut them down. There's 3 more videos. We'll kind of slowly go through them. But I want to show you guys this clip. And this is something that I took, or a photo, back in, I think this was September. I was already aware of this, but this is the a video that I did back in September of 2021. And so in this video, on the door. All right, so we stopped over here by She Beverage Company facility. Okay, at least they still got some vans out here. All right, I want to mute this. Probably worth about 16, maybe 17. I'm gonna pause this in the background. All right, you guys can see this photo. So this photo was posted on the door of She Beverage. So let me go ahead and play this video because I want you guys to see it for yourselves. That's where this video came from. And this is, obviously I did a video on all this before. You guys have already kind of seen this video. So we'll kind of skip ahead a little bit so you guys can see this notice that's on the door. That's looking at the license plates. All right, let's take a look around the side first. All right, there's a notice on the door. There's a notice of suspension here on the door. Here, there's a notice of suspension on the door. Now, if you look at the left, down here at the bottom left of that notice, this is the same screenshot. We have January 21st, 2021. The SEC didn't sue She Beverage or do anything with them until around September. And if you notice this note, what does it say? It says alcohol beverage licenses issued for these premises have been suspended by order of the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control for violation of the Alcoholic Control Act. It wasn't the sect that shut She Beverage down. It wasn't them. It was ABC. It was ABC that shut them down because they didn't have a license to make alcohol. But you'll see in these other videos, they used and she, whoever this person was, tried to create a false narrative, saying everybody's lying, saying it was the sect that shut them down. It wasn't the sect; it was ABC that initially shut them down, and they were shut down in January 21st of 2021, several months before, um, the sect took issue with them, and so it was ABC that shut them down, and so their videos here just definitely don't line up with the information that's being purported here. And so we'll play a little bit here. I'm going to kind of scrub through some of this. I'm not going to go through all of it, but there are some other clips in here which she tried to show exactly what She Beverage was doing in terms of having certain barrels or whatever the case might be, that they were alcohol trying to produce alcohol. But if you look at the barrels, it's in one of these particular videos. The barrels wasn't enough to return money or based on their investment. So these are the kegs. This is the warehouse facility. And so if you notice, or actually if you look at their records, oh, there they are right there. So if you actually look at their original license for ABC, that was in one of my previous videos. I'm not going to pull it up here. But if you look at it, their license gave them a limited use license. They couldn't ferment or produce alcohol all day. It was a very limited quality. And it was so limited, it wasn't enough to produce or recoup, so people could recoup the money off of their investment. So that was a dead giveaway there. I don't have it in front of me. That was in one of my first videos that I released on there. I'm just trying to bring most of you up to speed. But this is the information that they've put out several months ago. And I wouldn't have even put out something like this because, again, this shows that what they had wasn't enough to give you a return investment on their money. And so this was really foolish for them to even post something like this because it really goes against them and it really doesn't even help them whatsoever. And so then again, tagged on this video, $100,000. Obviously, she was trying to get some money for her legal defense, which has been, I think, pushed back to maybe next year or something like that. I'm not sure. So just wanted to make sure we kind of hone in on that because these several videos here are all interesting. There's no voice. So she's, my understanding, based upon the court documents here, she's been told not to communicate or talk to anybody. So putting out a video here with a bunch of clips and music obviously doesn't legally or technically constitute as trying to communicate, but it does try to say something. But that's just kind of towing the line here. So you got some videos here with some other claims of whatever the case might be, but all of these could easily be debunked because most of these ladies are sitting out here living out of your monies of investment. And then these are a few clips of the Women's Football League, which never took to fruition. And then we got scam artist Kat Durden over here that was filing all of these illegitimate PPP loans, which we'll go over here in just a few minutes. All right, so next document we want to pull up is, let's see, I think we have a couple here. All right, but that's pretty much the notice there that was left by She Beverage back in, I'm sorry, by the ABC January 21st. So it was ABC that shut them down. It had nothing to do with the SEC. The SEC came many months later. All right, so while I have it here up here on the screen, because this was the first individual to kind of plead guilty, we'll go ahead and pull that up. I know a lot of you here watching the channel or involved in She Beverage are not, you're probably not legal scholars, so we'll kind of keep this simple. But she pled guilty, and what Sonia Shelby was pretty much, let's see, this is one on one, pleading guilty to. Here, let me go ahead and mute this a little bit. Has something to do with IRS. I'm not going to go into all the details. We'll just kind of slowly scroll through this. If you guys want to take pictures of this on your screen, or if you want a copy of this, let me know. But the gist of it is that she's admitting to guilt, she's admitting to fault, and that she's not coerced or anything by anybody, and that she is taking responsibility for her portion of what happened here with She Beverage. Defendant agrees to give up the right to an indictment by a grand jury and at the earliest opportunity requested by the USAO. I'm not sure who that is, provided by the court, appear and plead guilty to a single count. Information in the form attached to this agreement, Exhibit A. I believe she pled guilty to some type of IRS or tax evasion, something. Okay, so it's in here which charges defendant with subscribing to a false tax return in violation of 26 USC. So she really didn't get hit with any too heavy, but I think she might be looking at about 60 days in jail, maybe something of that to that regard, or allegedly. We'd have to look at the court documents. There's a calculator that they use to kind of determine what the court or what the jail time is. They say, appear for all court appearances, surrender as ordered for services and sentences, obey all conditions of any bond, and obey any other ongoing court order in this matter. So I'm not even sure if she had to do bond. Looking at this document, and this isn't the only one that I have. There's several more. The only one that I know that had to pay some type of bond was Lupe Rose, and somebody bailed her out. I think her bail amount was like $2,000. So it was $20,000, but obviously that's $2,000 when you get ready to come out and pay it. She can't commit any more crimes. Offenses that would be excluded for sentencing purposes under United States sentencing are not within the scope of this agreement. She has to be truthful at all times as part of her plea agreement. Looks like she has some probation here. She has to pay the applicable special assessments at before time of sentencing unless the defendant has demonstrated a lack of ability to pay assessments. The defendant agrees to pay any and all criminal debt ordered by the court and will be due in full and immediately. The government is not precluded from pursuing in excess of any payment schedule set by the court, any and all available remedies by which to satisfy defendant's payment of the full financial obligation. So you have some things here. Then you have a bunch of other times and dates. Authorize the USAO to obtain a credit report upon returning a signed copy of this plea agreement. Consent to the USAO inspecting a copy of defendant's financial documents. So they're going through all their finances. Defendant admits that defendant received $1,561,393 of unreported income, i.e., $47,622, $104,942, $109,611, $714,059, $278,000, and $89,000 for calendar years 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So you guys can see how far back She Beverage is going in her terms of how long they've been accepting payments. Defendant will file prior to the time of sentencing amended returns for those years subject to the above admission. So honestly, I think this is kind of lightweight, nothing really heavy. Correctly reported unreported income will be requested to do so, and IRS is involved. Provide the Internal Revenue Service with information regarding the years covered by any returns will pay to the fiscal clerk, etc., etc. So again, you guys can read all of this. I will kind of quickly scroll through all of it. And give me one quick second here. I'm going to look up something else. All right, let's see. Defendant is liable for the fraud penalty imposed by the IRS on the understatements of tax liability 2015. So they just pretty much got them for the standard tax stuff from 2015 to 2021. Defendant gives up any and all obligations that could be asserted into the examination division of the IRS. The USAO agrees to not contest facts agreed to in this agreement, abide by all agreements regarding sentencing contained in this agreement. At the time of sentencing, provided that defendant demonstrates an acceptance of responsibility for the offense up to and including the time of sentencing, recommended 2-level reduction in the applicable sentencing guidelines offense level. So again, this is what I was talking about. There's a chart that shows what they could get penalized for if they have to go to jail or whatever the case might be. Not further criminally prosecute defendant for violations of 18 USC. We'll skip this. See, so they did get them for those PPP loans that Kat Durden was filing for them. Arising out of PPP loans submitted to MBE Capital Partners, Cross River Bank, Celtic Bank. So these are all the banks that the PPP loans were submitted to. If you guys don't know what a PPP loan is, remember back during COVID, if you had a business and try to keep stay afloat, you could file a PPP loan. And so people have been going to jail for that quite recently, and they've been kind of cracking down on all of that. So that's where most of this kind of comes from. Let's see, sentencing guidelines range, proprietary extent. Recommend that defendant be sentenced to a term of imprisonment no higher than the low end of the applicable sentencing guidelines range, provided that the offense level used by the court to determine that range is 13 or higher, and provided that the court does not depart downward on the offense level. In the term of imprisonment that may be permissible through subsequent. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. Defendant. No, so this is what she signed and agreed to, without any coercion, without a lawyer talking her out of it, anything like that. She agreed to this. The defendant understands that for defendant to be guilty of the crime charged in the single count information, that is subscribing to a false tax return in violation of 26 USC. The following must be true. Defendant signed and caused the filing of a tax return for the specified year that she knew contained false information as to a material matter. The return contained a written declaration that it was being signed subject to the penalties of perjury and in filing the false tax return. Okay, so this is just a basic white collar, it's white collar crime, tax stuff. Just signing your tax returns and admitting that you didn't file, whatever the case might be, or commit a perjury. A matter is material if it has a natural tendency to influence or is capable of influencing the decision or activities of the IRS. Defendant understands that the statutory maximum sentence that the court can impose for a violation of this 26 USC is 3 years imprisonment, a 1 year period of supervised release, and a fine of $250,000 or twice the gain or gross loss resulting from the offense, whichever is greatest, and a mandatory special assessment of $100. Defendant understands and agrees that the court may order defendant to pay restitution in the form of any additional taxes, interest, penalties, etc., etc. Let's see, his defendant understands the supervised release is a period of time following imprisonment during which defendant will be subject to various restrictions and requirements. So you see, this is pretty much her penalty here. It says defendant understands that by pleading guilty, defendant may be giving up valuable government benefits, such as the ability to have a firearm, right to hold the office, right to serve on jury duty. Defendant understands that she is pleading guilty to a felony and that it is a federal crime for a convicted felon to possess a firearm or ammunition. There's other various consequences, such as collateral consequences, including but not limited to revocation of probation, parole, or supervised release in another state, and suspension or revocation of a professional license. All right, so it has some other stuff there that doesn't really pertain to them. Factual basis. Defendant admits that defendant is in fact guilty of the offense to which defendant is agreeing to plead guilty. Defendant and the USAO agree to this statement of facts provided below and agree. Let's see here. The established sentencing guidelines factors set forth in paragraph 13 below, but is not meant to be complete recitation of all facts relevant to the underlying criminal case. Yeah, that's a lot. All because of this. Just, people's monies and stuff. Let's see here. Defendant was the co-founder Vice President, Treasurer, and Human Resources Director for She Beverage. The She Beverage is a California corporation. It has all the information there, woman owned, etc., etc. She Beverage had the following bank account: Wells Fargo Bank, ending in 4064, Wells Fargo Bank, ending in 7657. Let's see what else we got here. Those are all the bank accounts that they had. Between at least 2015 2021, defendant withdrew cash from the She Beverage bank accounts and used She Beverage debit cards in defendant's name for personal use and expenses. The cash withdrawals and debit card purchases were personal income to defendant, which defendant did not report to the IRS. So I think I showed on one of the documents. I can't remember if I showed it or not, but they had listed on a previous document. Again, I can't remember if I showed it in the video, but it had their income. I think she and Kat Durden was scheduled to get $100,000 a year. Brandon Shelby was supposed to get like 50 to about $70,000 a year. And then Lupe Rose was taking a yearly salary of like $200,000 a year, something of that nature. Don't quote me on that. Uh, but I can't remember if I showed that here on the channel or not. So I don't know if I have. I don't know if I'll have time to show you guys that document. But they were using that for their income basis, and so that's where a lot of this money was also coming from. For a total of $128,000, $947.66. Also in 2018, defendant made approximately 17 cash withdrawals from branch locations from She Beverage. Approximately $134,000 in 2019. So yeah, she was using that as a personal. So all the money that you guys invested, they were using it as personal income. Bank accounts ending in 8407, totaling approximately $148,000 in 2019. Defendant made approximately 23 online transfers from a She Beverage bank account ending in 8407 to defendant's personal account at Wells Fargo, totaling approximately $57,941. All right, defendant didn't report this money to IRS. Approximately $1.5 million in personal income. Yeah, if it's over $20,000, you guys have to report it. Inclusive due to defendant's concealment was between $250,000 and $550,000 there. So again, this is what she pled guilty to. Again, let's keep scrolling, real quickly. We want to make sure we take a look at the other documents. But that is what these charges are for. Just the basic IRS stuff. Sentencing factors here and there. Let's just kind of go through. Defendant understands that by pleading guilty, defendant gives up the following right: the right to persist in a plea of not guilty, the right to a speedy and public trial by jury, the right to be represented by counsel, and if necessary, have the court appoint counsel at the trial. Defendant understands, however, that defendant retains the right to be represented by counsel. Mm. So again, this took place before those videos that Monica person put up, saying, "Oh, we're innocent. We didn't do nothing." Yada yada yada, and they're already signing plea agreements in the background. Didn't even know about it, trying to swindle you out of some money again, and then come to find out that URBT, even though we already know where they sold all everybody's information to, that was another scam too for them to kind of raise money to get a lawyer, allegedly. And any all rights to pursue information defenses, Fourth Amendment, waiver of appeal. Defendant understands that with the exception of an appeal based on the claim that defendant's guilty plea was involuntary. Defendant is waiving and giving up any right to appeal defendant's conviction on the offense to which defendant is pleading guilty. Let's see, how much longer is this document? I think Kat's is about the same length. Thank you. I just like to lay out the facts. I think you guys have all kind of seen the gist of what's happened with Sonia Shelby. The procedures calculation used to determine imposed portion, court calculation, defendant criminal history category. All right. Defendant also gives up any right to bring a post-conviction collateral attack on the convictions, sentencing statutes or statutes of conventions. Defendant understands that this waiver includes but is not limited to arguments. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. Let's just quickly scroll through to the bottom. She's been ordered to pay restitution of $398,000. Result of withdrawal of guilty plea. So this is if she changes her mind. Defendant agrees that if, after entering a guilty plea pursuant to this agreement, defendant seeks to withdraw and succeeds in withdrawing defendant's guilty plea on any basis other than a claim and finding that entry into this plea agreement was involuntary, then the USAO will be relieved of all of its obligations under this agreement. And should the USAO choose to pursue any charge that was either dismissed or not filed as a result of this agreement, then any applicable statute of limitations will be told between the date of defendant's signing of this agreement and the filing commencing of such action. And defendant waives and gives up all defenses based on the statute of limitations. Well, man. Any claim of pre-indictment delay or any speedy trial claim with respect to any such actions except to the extent that such defenses existed as the date of defendant signing this agreement. All right, so it has the effective date here, breach of agreement. So again, we're just kind of scroll through some of these. You guys can read it. Just basically says if you breach this agreement, knowingly violate or fail any part of this agreement, defendant's obligations under this agreement, USAO may declare this agreement breached. So the court is just laying down what they're going to do. You breaching the contract if you violate any of this. Defendant agrees that any statements made by defendant under oath at the guilty plea hearing, if such a hearing occurred prior to the breach, agreed to factual basis statement in this agreement. And defendant in any such action against, so just laying out the heavy hand. Like, don't trip. You sign this agreement, don't play us. And we won't bring the full scale of law on you. So Sonia Shelby's honestly isn't that bad compared to what Kat Durden did. And obviously Lupe Rose. But we'll get to that here. It's a lot to take in and read. I think it took me like 40 minutes to kind of go through all of these. This says, defendant understands that even if the court ignores any sentencing recommendation, finds facts or reaches conclusion different from those agreed to, and or imposes any sentence up to the maximum established by statute. Defendant understands that no one, not the prosecutor, defendant's attorney, or the court, can make a binding prediction or promise regarding the sentence defendant will receive, except that it will be within the statutory maximum. Oh yeah, so yeah. Play ball. So then, of course, there is the plea agreement. Then, of course, this is, I think that's the plaintiff, the district attorney or whatever. Then you have Sonia Shelby. Then Jay Lynchen is the attorney for Sonia Shelby. And then, of course, down here at the bottom, you have her signing the plea agreement. So I think that does it for Sonia Shelby. So let's take a look at Kat Durden's. Let's see, we've been on here now for about 50 minutes. Let's see. Where is... I think this is Kat Durden's. Again, I'm just going to kind of scroll through this one, but even though she has more information on hers in terms of what she violated, some of the things. So this is... Just want to make sure I have the right document in front of me. Let's see, I think there should be a signature on here. Now, Kat pled guilty August 6th of this year, which was just a few weeks ago. All right, here we go. So there it is. This is Kat Durden's signature, August 6th, 2024. Before we kind of get into the whole thing, we'll make sure we just take a look at the signature part. I want to make sure I have some evidence here for all of you. We got some naysayers out there, and people, even though they know they're guilty, just going to ride or die, whatever. Defendant understands that except is set forth herein, there are no promises, understandings, or agreements between the USAO and defendant or defendant's attorneys, and that no additional promise, understanding, or agreement may be entered into unless a writing signed by all parties. So, a plea agreement part of the guilty plea hearing. The parties agreed that this agreement would be considered part of the record of defendant's guilty plea as if the entire agreement had been read into the record of the proceeding. So there it is. You have Kat Durden's signature, August 6, 2024. And there's a certificate. I think the attorney had to sign this as well. Certification of defendant's attorney. I am Kat Durden's attorney. I have carefully and thoroughly discussed every part of this agreement with my client. Further, I fully advise my client of her rights, possible pretrial motions that might be filed, of possible defenses that might be asserted either prior. So, entering in this agreement, to my knowledge, no promises, inducements, or representations of any kind have been made to my client other than those contained in this agreement. So, just kind of paraphrasing some of this, from my understanding, you were only supposed to, or she was only supposed to file for one PPP loan. You couldn't file a PPP loan for multiple different businesses, which is what she did. Now, again, I'm just kind of going over what I read, if I understood that correctly. She has several different businesses, and she filed a loan, PPP loan, for each one of them, and that's how you got up to about $1.5 million or so. Now, keep in mind, this is after they stopped responding to people. This is after Yvette Espinosa sued them and she got her money back. And I think the reason why she did some of this is because they had to pay her back. Or Yvette Espinosa was going to wage garnish or garnish Kat Durden's husband's wages. Because she contacted his place of employment and said, "Look, I'm gonna garnish wages if you guys don't pay up." And I think she was gonna put a lien on the house. I don't if I can recall correctly, but she has assets to go kind of go over. So again, I'm gonna quickly kind of scroll through this. I'm not gonna read all of it. I know it's almost a little bit late here. But they want Kat Durden to play ball. You got to be honest with us. You give us the facts. You talk to us. You get a lighter sentence. Now, unlike Sonia Shelby, Kat Durden can't lie, can't commit any crime. She can't do it. She has to be truthful. She has to pay the special assessment or whatever, pay all the criminal debt, but they have to walk a tight line. They have to walk a tight line between, let me see, completing the financial disclosure form, provide USAO within 30 days, defendant's entry, criminal debt, yada, yada, yada. Respond truthfully and complete all questions that may be put to defendant, whether in interviews before a grand jury or at any trial. So I think she has to testify and some other stuff, if I was reading this correctly. Attend all meetings, grand jury sessions, trials, or other proceedings at which defendant's presence is requested by the USAO or compelled by subpoena or court order. Produce voluntarily all documents, records, or other tangible evidence relating to the matters about which the USAO or its designee inquires. Cooperation, information, shall mean any statements made or documents, records, tangible evidence, or other information provided by defendants. So she's got to play ball too. But again, unlike you didn't see all of this in Sonia Shelby's, they just got us for some basic white collar crime, tax crap, which obviously doesn't really mean, well, I mean it does, but it really doesn't. At the time of sentencing, provide that defendant demonstrates an acceptance of responsibility for the offense up to and the time of sentencing. Recommend a 2-level reduction in the applicable. Okay, so that's the same crap that they gave Sonia Shelby. Again, I'm just scrolling for all of you there at home so you guys can kind of maybe screenshot some of this, take a look at it, digest it in your own personal time. In connection with defendant sentencing, to bring the court's attention to the nature of extended defendant's cooperation. Not further criminally prosecute defendant for violations. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of it for Kat Durden here. Now we're going to scroll down a little faster here. Uh, Defendant understands the following. Again, this is something that she already signed. Any knowingly false or misleading statement by defendant will subject defendant to prosecution for false statement. Obstruction of justice and perjury will also constitute a breach by defendant of this agreement. So you know what sucks to some extent. Um, Based upon what I've collected, Kat Durden kind of came in on the end. It was Sonia Shelby and Kat Durden. Sonia Shelby was kind of what the HR person, just like how we read and everything. And I think she was one of the original, another investor, and kind of came on and took on the role of an officer in the company. But uh, she's getting hit harder than this. So again, I think Sonia and Kat or Sonia and Lupe are in a relationship, but she's getting hit harder. Because I think probably because she's the one that did all the PPP loans, allegedly. Nothing in this agreement requires the USAO or any other prosecuting enforcement, administrative, or regulatory. Defendant cannot withdraw defendant's guilty plea if the USAO does not make a motion pursuant to USSG. For a reduced guideline range of the USAO makes such a motion and the court does not grant it if the court grants such a USAO motion, but elects to sentence above the reduced range. All right, looks like we got a couple of people watching. Thank you guys for tuning in a little bit late. We got only 2 people watching right now. So if you guys can, if you know friends or family members, you want to share this video, please help. Defendant understands that for defendant to be guilty of the crime charge in the single count information that is wire. Okay, so they're getting her for wire fraud. Defendant knowingly participated in or devised a scheme or plan to defraud or a scheme or plan for obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretenses, representations, promises, or omitted facts. So a lot of people were saying that she was all completely innocent. Well, she didn't know. And again, I always go back to the street justice kind of thing is, like when she Beverage and that sign that I showed you that was on the door January 1st, uh, January 21st of 2021 or whatever it was. Why didn't they say anything? Why didn't they say anything? Why didn't they, call up all the homies and say, hey, something's going on? But keep in mind when this went on, as you will see here in these documents, let's see if we can carry up and get to it. The statements made by or facts omitted as part of the scheme material. Okay, we'll script that. You got here for wire fraud. 3 years supervised. 3-year period supervised release, a fine of $250,000. Defendant understands the defendant will be required to pay full restitution. In particularly, defendant agrees that the court may order restitution to any victim. Okay, I'm sure you guys will be happy to hear that as you kind of get back some of your money, if all possible. That would be nice to see. The parties currently believe that the applicable amount of restitution is approximately $1,086,000. But recognize and agree that this amount could change based on facts that come to attention. So there's still some facts they could come in there and hit her with. So let's see. It's all defendant stuff. Again, let's slowly kind of go through this. All right, down here on the bottom, defendant understands that unexpected immigration conduct. Okay, that doesn't apply to her. Defendant admits that defendant is in fact guilty of the offense to which defendant is agreeing to plead guilty. Defendant and the USAO agreed to the statement of facts provided below and agreed that the statement of facts is sufficient to support a plea of guilty. All right, so here's what PPP stands for. The Paycheck Protection Program and Economic Injury Disaster Loan (EIDL) program were established by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act, a federal law enacted in March of 2020. Providing emergency financial assistance to Americans suffering economic harm as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. PPP loans were obtained by submitting applications to participating financial institutions which administered the loans. EIDL loans were obtained by submitting applications to the Small Business Administration, which dispersed the loans through financial institutions. PPP and EIDL programs were funded by U.S. taxpayers. In order to obtain and retain funds distributed by the PPP and EIDL programs, recipients were required to certify that they would use the funds to pay for specified permissible business expenses, for example, payroll and certain operation expenses, and to use those funds for those purposes and no others. In 2017, this was, keep your finger on that date, this is when that's around the same time period, 2017, is when Yvette Espinoza filed a lawsuit against She Beverage. She became the chief operating officer. Information here about She Beverage. Became a company founded in 2009. Her responsibility as COO defendant was responsible for ensuring She Beverage had the required insurance, helping to create She Beverage's inventory management system with QuickBooks, and performing some corporate sales of She Beverage. So she was the money handler operations for She Beverage. Beginning in April 2020, which was right after the COVID shutdown, because the COVID shutdown took place around March 11th, March 17th of 2020, continuing through about June 2021, Los Angeles County within the Central District of California and elsewhere, defendant agreed with LRSAO with Lupe Rose and Sonia Shelby to submit fraudulent loan applications to obtain PPP and EIDL benefits to lenders. So I don't have any information here that says it, but obviously it's just making a abrupt statement here that she agreed with them to commit fraud. Not my words, it's theirs. To lenders, financial institutions affiliated with PPP and EIDL programs. This included Bank A and SBA lender based in New Jersey, which participated in the PPP loan business or small businesses. Then it says the false and fraudulent information agreed with Lupe Rose, and which stands for LR, and SS Sonia Shelby to provide the PPP lenders and the SBA included loan application that contain false representation regarding the number of employees and payroll of the businesses purportedly applying for the loans and false qualifications. So they all agreed. They all agreed to submit with Lupe Rose and Sonia Shelby submit false and fraudulent information to PPP loans. It's part of the fraudulent scheme on or about April or May of 2020. By the defendant with tax identifiers, bank account numbers, and other details of various companies and so forth. For example, on or about March 28, 2021, again, keep in mind they're submitting all this paperwork, she's submitting it, but people were asking, like, hey, where the hell is my money? Where's my investment? And they never heard back or got a response. So she's filling out this stuff, but yet, well, I mean, you couldn't use it to pay back anyway. You couldn't do it, but I'm just saying, nobody got paid back their money as far as I know. Seeking a PPP loan amount in the amount of $192,000. Which application contained the following representative about She Beverage that defendant knew were false. She Beverage had 26 employees. She Beverage had $54,980 in monthly payroll on or about April 14, 2021, based on the material representations in the March 2021 PVP application. Bank A transferred approximately $192,000 via interstate wire to a bank account of the same name as Beverage and NAN 8407. Okay. For the purpose of relevant conduct, defendant also knowingly submitted and caused to be submitted additional false and fraudulent information, including false payroll expenses, false IRS tax forms, and misrepresentations regarding the operational status of the business. Says in the PPP and EIDL applications described in the table below, defendant made these false and fraudulent statements knowing. Okay, still got stuff going on. See, some of these proceeds were used to pay expenses and payroll, but the majority of the proceeds were used by Loop LR, Lupe Rose, and Sonia Shelby for their personal use and benefit, which use defendant knew was impermissible under the terms of the PPP and EIDL program. So these are the amounts that she applied for each company. These are all these are all different businesses. So you got She Beverage Co., Shelby Durden, and Rose Investment Corp. All right. Let's see. PPP loan applications for companies of which defendant was the sole proprietor and our partner for these PPP loans. Defendant knowingly submitted false and fraudulent information, including false payroll expenses. So you guys get the gist, and then down here, here we are. Finally, these are the amounts of monies that she was funded with each and every individual PPP loan. So these are the names of all of her companies. This is all of her, obviously her name. You have her money here, the amount that she applied for, and she got all the money that she requested for a number of different businesses. Now, I think I saw online somewhere somebody commented about Sweet Cheeks. I'm not sure. It was a very similar post, a very similar situation here. Said that this is a ultrasound technician place, from my understanding, and somebody was showing baby pictures of her baby to a relative or friend or boyfriend without her consent. That's a huge no-no. But these are all her businesses, and these are the amounts of money here that were applications filed for different sums of money. Wire fraud, relevant conduct described and above, etc., etc. So that's how much she agrees to pay back. Defendant understands that with the exception, so now they can't own a firearm. I think you can still be able to vote now if you're admitting to a felony or whatever. So she could try to back out of this deal, but that's not something she wants to do. They're cutting her a break. Information should be suppressed or in as admissible. Not filed as a result of this agreement. Or any speedy trial claim with respect to any action or extent. So let's see. Effective agreement. Signature, breach of contract, breach of agreement. Defendant agrees that a defendant at any time after the effective date of this agreement knowingly violates or fails to perform any defendant's obligations. So she got some obligations up in here. A breach. USAO may declare this agreement breach. For example, if defendant knowingly in an interview before a grand jury or at trial falsely accuses another person of a criminal conduct or falsely minimizes defendant's own role or the role of another in criminal conduct, defendant will have breached this agreement. So if you guys have been watching some of that YSL trial stuff, there have been people that got plea agreements and deals and stuff, and then when they got up there on the stand, they didn't want to play ball, and then went on to say a bunch of other stuff. So just to kind of give you an idea about what they don't want to see happen. All right, so I think that kind of wraps it up for Cat Durden's situation here, you guys. I mean, there's some more information here. Again, we're kind of scrolling through this. If you guys want to slow down the video, kind of watch it, kind of read through some of it, but I kind of just paraphrase all of it. And this is only a few of the documents. This isn't even all of them. Then, of course, you have your signature uh, down there. So that's all right. So let's take a look. I think I got a couple more documents that you guys could take a look at, but that's been pretty much the gist of it. Again, that information, most of this information was sent to me months ago. But unlike what some people claim, we got better things to do here. But again, for you investors out there that invested money and time in She Beverage, you deserve to know the truth. Obviously, as you guys can see here, there's been a lot of lies spewed out by Lupe Rose. And there's some additional claims here too, because each and every one of you can still get your own attorneys and then follow it that way. I know that's a very costly thing. And it's really unfortunate because it's also been brought to my attention too that there have been a number of investors or people who unfortunately passed away to this situation, and not by accident means they took things into their own hands because they lost a lot of money. But we definitely wanted to shed light here, kind of bring up the information. I know it's about an hour and something into this video, but again, just try to keep everything short and concise for a lot of the investors who can't or maybe have the means to kind of find out what the updates were in regards to that. But yeah, so Lupe Rose used to be a convict. I'm sure most of you wouldn't have invested money if you had known that information. This Monica Chalmers person over here, I believe that's Lupe Rose using a different alias over there, begging for money when they already put into a plea agreement. At least one of them already put into a plea agreement, rather. Um, Cat Durden pled guilty to a lot of this. They got to have some type of restoration. I don't know what happened to these vans either. I have no idea what happened to that. That factory now is owned by somebody else. The barrels that they were claiming was going to, they were going to do something with or whatever. It wasn't even enough to give you a return investment. They had a very limited quantity in which they could produce alcohol. So those are the updates. Again, they've been sued previously. In fact, there's still several other lawsuits still going on. So I don't even know if those have been settled. In fact, here's one right here. I don't know what's going on with this. But as you can see, Kim Babbage versus She Beverage. So I don't know what happened with that, but that's not the only lawsuit that's been going on. There's been a number of different situations in regards to She Beverage and previous investors. But yeah, it's good to know that they are making some type of headway. There's a lot more dirt that's probably going to be coming out. But I think that's probably enough for tonight. And you guys get some rest. And I want to definitely thank all of the subscribers. If you guys want to subscribe to our Patreon support, it's the Angelica TJ Adventure channel. I think the link to our Patreon is somewhere up here loaded. Yeah, I think I'll put it here. If you want to support our Patreon, I think I'll put that here in the chat. Got to start somewhere, right? But I hope you guys found all this information helpful. So you guys know the best course of action. If you have friends or family members that were swindled, I think some of the ladies from the football company reached out to me. The ones that were trying to play football, they had something going on, whatever. They were kind of wanting some updates. But again, I know most of you are out of state, kind of scattered all over the place. So that's pretty much the latest update in regards to She Beverage. So next would probably be Lupe Rose's arraignment, or not her arraignment, but her trial date, whenever that might take place. But we're kind of winding down here. So it's been a very interesting ride. Thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. Hopefully you enjoy my other content, travel. I try to keep it basic. I have a lot of videos to kind of upload, but we didn't want to sit around on information and know something and not say something. I think that would be wrong. And Even in this case, for the people who donated or invested, no, I won't say donated, but invested $300,000, $500,000, 20 grand, 30 grand, that really, sucks. You could have put your money in Bitcoin and been a millionaire or whatever by now. You would have had some money. But it always pays to do your due diligence. Better off, investing in Bitcoin or a real stock market now, because stocks have been taken off in the past few days from based upon what I've seen. So this is us from the Adventure Channel signing out. I hope there wasn't something that I forgot to add. Make sure you check the community tab. But yeah, that's all the downright dirty information. Like, why didn't they say anything? So I don't know. Peace out. Have a great adventure. We will be back with more information later, sooner or later. But you guys have a good night. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.